welcome back to the sanctuary today, folks. I have a new friend on. I don't know a whole lot about him, but we're gonna find out together. His name is Michael Mathis, and Michael is a pastor in Dubai. And so Michael and I have connected through. Saw him get up on the church platform, speak just a few minutes about what he does in Dubai, and so yeah, he's there. So Michael, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah.
Grateful for the opportunity to speak.
Yeah, it's great to get to know you. So maybe just give us a little background on yourself as far as did you grow up in the Christian faith? Did you go to church, or were you one of the wild ones? What's your story, brother?
Yeah, so I grew up in the North Dallas suburbs, so I'm from the Dallas area. That's where both of my parents grew up there as well. And so I actually did not grow up in the church at all. Okay. Now, I think we would have considered ourselves Christians because
Culture.
we wouldn't have considered ourselves anything else.
Right.
But no, I actually didn't grow up going to church at all. And so it was, I went to school, got good grades, generally stayed out of trouble, but I didn't know anything about Jesus. I would hear things about a little bit about the Christmas story or Easter, but I actually was very, what we would call biblically illiterate. I really knew almost nothing. And so it wasn't until my junior high years that I came to faith. And so there's four of us. So I have an older sister. I'm the second oldest. Then I have a younger brother, and then my younger sister is 3 years between all of us. And so it was a sad circumstance, though. When I was about 10, my parents separated, and then when I was 12, they officially got a divorce. Mm-hmm. And so, but it was actually through that I look at the ashes of my childhood at that point, that the Lord did some incredible work. My father, actually, the year after they got divorced, he didn't want it, but in despair, actually turned to the Lord. My dad came to faith, was baptized as a believer at age 45.
Praise God. Yeah.
And so my father, in his 40s, but yet as a very young Christian, started bringing us with him to church. Yeah. We had some family friends who one of my best friends in first grade, second grade, their family faithfully invited us to church for years. And of course, we went maybe once or twice, but never really did. But that was actually the family my dad called up and came to faith. That's where he eventually met now my stepmom. They've been married for 30 years now. But it was, and then he just continuing to bring us with him, share the gospel with me, led me to faith the next year. So he'd been a Christian for a year and led me to faith. And so I became a Christian when I was 14. And so it was at that point that I could see things in my life start to change. I looked at sin that I used to engage in that just had lost an appetite for. I just didn't. They weren't as shiny as they used to be. And I could see things change. I had a hunger for the Word. The same family, I remember, so we would attend with them. I don't think I was quite a Christian yet. I don't think I was, but I was interested. And I remember she presented me one Sunday with a Bible. So an NIV student Bible. And it was, I started reading the Gospel of Matthew just on my own, because I so biblically illiterate that I thought the Gospels were one story. So you start in Matthew and it ends in John. I was surprised I got to the end of Matthew. You saw the Great Commission. And so, but it was actually in reading that and in some faithful Wednesday night Bible teachers when I was in 7th grade, and then of course my dad's influence, that I met Jesus. And it was actually the end of the Sermon on the Mount that I recognized I was not building my house on the rock, but on sand. And it was in that sometime in that window that I repented. I turned to Jesus, and my life, that was the turning point in my life. And so
that's interesting. I've had people discuss it before, and we were talking before this came on here about what we call as cultural Christianity.
Yes.
There's the influence just in our culture. It's diminishing somewhat, but with this generation, but even the previous generation. But you still have that, a little bit of that salt and light influence. I'm old enough to remember blue laws, where you couldn't buy certain stuff on Sundays, But yeah, I like that so many people, I think, that, they have some sort of a knowledge of God, or they think they have a knowledge of God, but, they're biblically illiterate. And yeah, that's cool. I think it says in Hosea, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge of God. So you got the salvation experience. Now you're a pastor. Kind of walk us through kind of the transition here. What was the steps going further on?
Hope we have a little bit of time for this.
Yeah.
So after that point, it was at some point in, I think, my junior year of high school that I thought maybe I wanted to work with computers. My mom was a graphic designer, kind of encouraged me to kind of pursue software. I remember taking a computer science class in high school and thinking, this is not for me.
Yeah.
I'm glad there are people who could do that.
Yes.
I didn't want anything to do with it, but it was actually in an English class my junior year that I actually started to think about what it would be like to be a high school teacher. I realized I could have an impact on teenagers.
Yes.
It was something that I started to kind of desire growing in my heart. I didn't know how I'd provide for a family with that, because teachers aren't known to make a lot of money, but it was something
not a big paying job.
I decided to pursue. And as I kind of started looking at trying to figure out what would I want to teach, I didn't want to teach English. It was in the class that kind of inspired me. My best subject was actually math, but I discovered in high school I wasn't very good at explaining that to people. But I actually realized I loved my history classes. I loved history. And so that's what I decided to pursue. So as I went into my undergraduate degree, immediately I knew I wanted to be a history major and then minor in secondary education. So that's exactly what I did. And I went to the University of North Texas, just north of Dallas, up in Denton.
Yeah.
And that's where I got involved with a ministry called Campus Crusade, now called Cru. Right. And that's actually where, and then we, we're a part of a church called Denton Bible Church, and that's actually where I met my wife, through Campus Crusade. We were the same age. I was studying to be a high school teacher. She at the time was studying to be an elementary teacher, and so that's where we met, through that college, serving in that same university ministry.
Yeah.
And then so that was we got married about 2 weeks after I graduated. That was in 2004, and so we've been married for 21 years now. And then I started. So I'm specifically from Richardson, and then graduated from Plano Public Schools, and so that's where I started teaching. I started teaching in 2005 in Plano, Texas, and so taught there for 12 years, taught specifically world history. That's what I taught for 12 years there. And so that's...
that was an enjoyable experience?
Oh, absolutely. I do remember my first year teaching, about a few months in, talking to my stepdad later on, thinking, I don't know if this is the right career for me. So I'm very glad he said, hey, let's give it 3 years and then see. And I'm very glad. It was first year's tough. Second year was tough too, but I'm really glad I stayed. I mean, I can see the impact on so many students there that we were able to have, and just see how I grew as a teacher, but impact on some of my colleagues as well, those that teach in the same thing. And so it was, so my wife started out teaching second grade in Richardson ISD. And then it was after that so a few years in, about 3 years in, she was pregnant with our daughter, Emily. Okay. And so Emily's 18 now. And then the next year we had Sam, and he's 17 now. And so they both have just this last spring graduated high school and moved back to Texas and Savannah, Georgia for college now. But it was in that. So eventually, Amanda stayed home with our kids for several years as they were young, before they entered school. And then when she came back in, she had started out as a math major and then decided she really wanted to do elementary. Well, kind of coming back out of being a stay-at-home mom for several years, she decided she wanted to pursue high school math. And so that's what she did. She passed the certification test. So she actually ended up teaching the same high school as me for many years. Okay. Up until about 2017, and that's so she taught math, I taught history, and it was beautiful being able to ride to school together for several years and back. And so but
I feel a change is coming up though here.
Yeah. So just over time, we were longtime members of a church in the Dallas area called the Village Church, and who really promoted overseas mission work. And so we had wanted to be involved in that. So done short-term trips before. We wanted to be. We had looked at a couple different opportunities, maybe going to Kenya to work with Kenyan teachers. We looked at that, and it didn't work out. We had looked at Japan. We had looked at Germany, and so really didn't gain any traction. We weren't entirely sure what to do, and so we had visited Kenya, and we thought that's what we were going to do. We sold our house. We were raising funds, and then just from some circumstances outside of our control, we were after that unable to go, and so we kind of had to go back to square one and just pray and seek counsel from others in our church.
So you had sold your house.
Yeah.
And,
so,
and
then it kind of fell apart. So but in that process, I had wanted to attend seminary for a long time.
Okay.
And so I wasn't entirely sure why. I'd always loved studying theology,
me too.
and so but could never afford it. And so, but really was started to think, maybe is this possibly pastoral ministry the Lord was drawing us to?
Yeah.
I think we can often have an internal sense of calling.
Yeah.
But I think if we're not careful, we can declare that for ourselves and not be equipped for that or not have the right character for that. I think it requires our local church. I don't think individuals decide to be pastors. I mean, I think there's an internal desire for that. Aspiration is what Scripture would use. But I think it's our local churches that really, through the gospel, through the Scriptures, through the power of the Spirit, that raise up pastors. And so seeking counsel from our local church then, they actually said, hey, we have a training program within our church that can get some seminary credits for you, and then you can keep going with that. So we did that. We applied, and that was
What year was this?
That started in fall of 2016.
Okay.
So we're still teaching. So I was doing this training program that gave me about a quarter of my Master of Divinity degree while I was teaching full time. I still know how it happened, but by Lord's grace it did. And so in the process, though,
a quarter is good.
Yeah. So we, at the same time, still desired to go abroad, but I realized I'd been a teacher, but if I needed pastoral training, and I wanted theological training, if we were to go somewhere out in Asia or the 1040 window, I probably couldn't do language training at the same time. This would be too much. Yeah. So the thought was, if I could do pastoral training and still do theological training in a ministry context where it's possibly in English, that would be wonderful for us at that stage of our lives in our 30s. And so I just went on, and I had known about some international churches in Dubai before, the United Arab Emirates, because it's so diverse. English is widely spoken, and so I just started doing some Google searches, and I just Googled pastoral internships Dubai, and Redeemer Church of Dubai's pastoral internship was the first hit on Google that came up, and so I thought, this sounds great. So I took it back to our pastor at our sending church there and said, hey, are you guys theologically, this checks out exactly in terms of doctrinal statement, everything. You guys familiar with them? They said, actually, 2 of our elders had been there earlier in the year. We've been praying to send someone out there.
Wow.
I know any of that. That was
that was just a Google hit.
A Google search. And so reached out to the senior pastor who at this point today is one of my very best friends now, but didn't know him at the time. His name is Dave Furman, and who they invited us. We raised funds, went out there. We moved out there in September of 2017 as a pastoral intern. And so not knowing until later on that he and his wife had been about 3 years older than us in Campus Crusade, University of North Texas, and then Bible Church as well. And so
same background.
Yeah. And so and it turns out we had a lot of mutual friends. Without knowing that before I didn't know they were in Dubai, wouldn't really knew who they were.
It's beautiful how God connects all that together. There's some things you can try to work up or you can make happen, and through human effort. But when you're doing something like that and you're Googling Dubai and out of nowhere, and this guy pops up and he's from the same church and same area and all that. That's the hand of God.
Yeah, and incredibly thankful for that. Some
Yeah.
lifelong friends that we've been able to serve with now for many years, and so we actually, there are 2 years we actually ended up coming back to here to East Texas. Just took a brief hiatus there, but then we returned in 2021. But a total of 6 years. So we're now entering this fall our 7th year serving at Redeemer in Dubai.
So are you the pastor there now?
So I'm one of the associate pastors.
Associate pastor, okay.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about the church. What's the makeup of the church?
Yeah, so a couple things. It'd be helpful for me to say a couple things about Dubai first, and then I think that'll help us understand the church. So Dubai, it's the United Arab Emirates. There's 7 emirates, and so they're, in terms of driving between them, functionally kind of like a state, but they all have a local family that actually rules. So they're essentially like royalty, kings.
Yeah, yeah.
The sheikhs are essentially tribal leaders, and these 7 in 1970 united together to form a country. So Dubai is an emirate. Most of it is actually desert, but the city itself is up along the coast, and overall the city has about 4 million people in Dubai. And so it's been growing very rapidly. And so 90% of those in the city are expats. They've come there for work. And so the local Arab or Emirati population make up about 10%. And then 90% of us have come from somewhere else for work.
It's a real cosmopolitan place.
It really is. It's the most cosmopolitan city in the world. And so 90%, it's estimated about 200 nationalities reside in the city. And so, but because...
And it's a Muslim
yes.
country, so you just don't go out on the street and start sharing the gospel or anything like that.
Right.
You have to go through the government and the state and so forth. That these churches are set up with the government. Is that correct?
Yes. So we, because there's so many expats, there was a group called the Kennedy family, famously that went there. They had been in Bahrain, they'd been in some other places in the Gulf, and they were just setting up hospitals. And so they were Christians. They were doing that intentionally to help, but the royal family in Abu Dhabi, which is the capital of the UAE, and then some in Dubai as well, but specifically Abu Dhabi, the infant mortality rate, even for the royal family, those with the most money, was high.
Oh, okay.
Very high. So about a quarter of the babies didn't make it, and a quarter of the mothers didn't make it through childbirth. And so they asked the Kennedy family to come. So they set up the Oasis Hospital, and there are princes who've been born in that hospital at this point.
Yeah.
But they allowed churches to exist. And what happened was some of the sheikhs later on said, hey, these were good people. They loved us before they knew we had oil.
Yeah.
And so the churches have had favor since then. So the churches legally exist. So my visa is through the Evangelical Church. So we legally exist, and we're incredibly thankful that the government allows us to operate as a church. The government has been very, very kind to churches there, and so we're incredibly. It is a majority Muslim country, but there are many, many, many Christians there too. And so we're incredibly thankful for the favor that we've been given by the government. And so
I kind of got you sidetracked. So
yeah, no, sorry. So coming back to our specific church, we were planted. Redeemer Church of Dubai was planted by Dave Furman 15 years ago, out of another church. So the edge of town, we have what's called in Jebel Ali, an area. There's the Evangelical Church compound. And so that's where many evangelical churches meet. Well, the goal was to plant a church on the other side of the city, about 40 minutes away, where many members were trying to drive down, and many of which don't own cars. And so we planted a church 15 years ago in a hotel ballroom. And so we still meet in a hotel today. And so the government gives us a certificate allowing us to meet there. And so we meet there every Sunday. We have 2 services, and so our attendance overall on a Sunday is about 1,100 people.
Awesome.
And so the heart of the Middle East, and then so our membership is about 600. We have about 1,100 on attendance across our 2 services on a Sunday. And the nationalities we have, I don't know the exact number, but it's between 60 and 70 nationalities in our church.
Yeah.
And so a lot of different cultures, and many of them, all those almost all of them know English and fluent in English, but for a lot of them, English is a second language.
Right.
And so the things that we have in common there of those that gather at our church are, we live in Dubai or the UAE. We are Christians, or at least coming to hear the gospel preached, and we speak English. That's really what we have in common. And so that it's really is a beautiful picture of many people who visit there will say it feels like a picture out of the book of Revelation, seeing nations gather around the throne.
You know, one of the criticisms of the church here in the United States is on Sunday morning is the most racially divided hour of the whole week. You've got your church, I've got my church. So that's beautiful. Yeah, the picture in Revelation, they're all before the throne. That's awesome.
Yeah, so 60 to 70 of them. And so we have, as much as possible, we want our eldership and our deacons and our staff to be representative of those in our community, those at our church, as much as possible that we can.
So you have all these different people, all these different backgrounds, all this different culture. So how do you approach presenting the preaching of the word, the gospel, the teaching, or do you have multiple type, I guess maybe discipleship classes or Bible study classes? How does that work out with, it's pretty easy around here living in Texas, you just, but when you have that many different people, I would suspect that there would be some challenges with that.
There are.
To effectively communicate to them.
Yeah, so we do in English, so we preach from the Bible in English. We also, one of our, theological convictions is that all of Scripture is always relevant to all people. And so, as it's been for, at least in the church for 2,000 years, but even before that, with the Old Testament Scriptures. And so because we hold so tightly to that, we preach expositionally each week from the Scriptures. Everything in our service flows from Scripture. So we have a call to worship that is from a biblical passage. We have all of our songs we believe should be doctrinally and scripturally grounded. We have a prayer that we offer. It could be a prayer of confession and an assurance of pardon, or a prayer of thanksgiving. And so if if the passage being preached that Sunday is a New Testament passage, well, our prayer will be Old Testament. If we're preaching from the Old Testament, our prayer will be from the New Testament. So we try to do both. And we practice, we believe in the public reading of Scripture. We believe that it's a command and it edifies, but everything we do is saturated in Scripture, because we believe that God, by His Spirit, sovereignly works through the preached word. And so there's nothing that I can do to convince someone to believe or change, but the Spirit through the Word supernaturally and miraculously works. And so we believe that. We do try to keep in mind if we do illustrations, for example, we try not to do something that would be only relevant to a particular culture, because it just doesn't make sense. And so we try that as much as possible, and we try to think broadly about our application. The reality, though, is and when it comes to worldviews, so Americans, or most Westerners, come from what we would call a truth or a guilt type mindset. And so we have a lot of things are very black and white to us, but most of our congregation comes from an honor shame mindset, where your sin, we think individually here about our sin and how, it might hurt our family members. We know it hurts ourselves, but we rarely think about the broader community unless something really egregious happens.
More individualistic.
It is.
It's all about me.
Yeah, but for many of them, they come from an honor shame, where my sin, if I confess that to someone, that might shame my family here and in my home country, in my village where I'm from. And so we try to keep in mind all of our members. It doesn't mean that we don't address sin at all. We do, but we need to think about, how is someone from that going to be hearing this? Doesn't mean we change that, but we want to be thinking about, we don't want to just apply this to one group. We want all of our members to see this. The reality is, it doesn't matter what culture you come from. If you're a dad, if you're a father or a husband, the biblical picture of what that is, Bible's objective about that. Same thing for women. That same thing for children. How we share the gospel with our neighbor. How what type of Christian we should be in the workplace. Those things are actually our objective. And so we try to apply it as broadly as we can, trusting the Lord's going to use it. And we've seen incredible fruit. That's all the Lord's work.
So it's kind of touchy. I guess the word maybe is evangelizing. So if I was a member of the church, would I just ask someone, "Hey, Michael, why don't you come to church with me?" Is that the approach that?
Very, very common approach is inviting neighbors, coworkers to church. So, I mean, we have people from a lot of different backgrounds that will come attend, and many of whom have never heard the gospel ever.
I bet.
One of the things we found too, though, is that we have a lot of people that come to our church who end up coming to faith, who arrive thinking they're Christians.
Yes.
And the reason I say that is many of them have come from a prosperity background where they think that the gospel is a means to riches on earth and health and wealth, when that's not even, I mean, we call it the prosperity gospel. That's not even the gospel. That is a false gospel.
It is.
And I firmly believe the prosperity gospel damns people.
Yes.
And so we have a lot of people that come and try to come to a membership class, try to join, and realize they actually haven't ever repented of their sins and trusted in Jesus. And we have had many, many people get saved through the membership process of trying to join the church. They realize, I'm not a Christian. They come to faith in that process. It's been beautiful to see.
It's to me, it's really a sad fact. I'm glad you brought that up. And it's, you could not preach that. You couldn't take that prosperity gospel message. You couldn't take it and preach it in, 80% of the world. That just wouldn't wash. You can preach it here in the States, but you go to a third world country or Africa or South America, and they're like, that's not that won't fly.
And actually, surprisingly, what we found, believe it or not, most of those are actually coming from very poor places who've heard that, which is, I mean, sometimes we're surprised because we understand it does not make sense. It's not biblical, and but it's even sadder. Some of those who are in some of the most acute poverty are giving the most, thinking they're going to get that.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there are prosperity churches in Dubai. Sadly,
really,
we see that too.
Okay.
But that is something that we very much combat because, and the reality is not because it's simply false and it's leading people astray, but because positively we believe there's a far richer treasure in Jesus.
Yeah, there you go. Preach it.
That then money will ever give us, and possessions will ever give us. That is a testimony of many people. They came to Dubai thinking they're going to get wealthy, thinking they're going to get rich. Many of them sending money home, but thinking I've hit the jackpot, and they found a far richer treasure in Jesus than they ever expected to find.
Well, you shared something with me interesting before the podcast, and I don't want y'all to get jealous, but. Tell us about the tax rate in Dubai.
Yeah, there are no income taxes in Dubai. There's a 5% VAT on everything, but there are no income taxes in Dubai. And so, that is a true thing of living there. Reality.
Yeah, I'm moving. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. But so the culture and your pastor there. If someone hadn't been to Dubai and they thought they just wanted to come and, vacation or come to a church, or maybe can they sign up to go through channels to work with the church for a period of time? How does all that work out?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think for those just traveling, it often does kind of depend upon the country. Some require visas. So as an American, we can get a free visa on arrival for, I believe it's like 30 days. But I think depending upon country, they might need actual visas to get there. But there's a lot of tourists that come. January, February, the winter months, the high there is about, at least in Fahrenheit, about 70, 75. It's beautiful. So it's a good time to go to the beach. So there's actually a lot of Europeans that leave the European winter to come to Dubai in the winter
Yeah.
because the weather's good. The summer does get pretty hot, so if other times of year weather's a little bit better, but I think for those interested maybe in serving in some capacity, there's always need. And so for anyone interested in that, could be, if you move there, you're there for even a period of time. Our church website certainly can contact one of us if they're interested in it, redeemerdubai.com. But even for someone coming who, if you're going to be there for a period of time, can join our church as a member, and there's a whole avenue of areas to serve that we can equip, and we can, depending upon maybe strengths or areas where they maybe served before, just as most churches always have need, we always have need, and so
Sure.
plenty of ministry to be done where we are.
You mentioned something earlier, if I caught it right, there was like a hub of churches, or were they, I forgot how you phrased it, like there was a certain place and you were trying to be strategic about working out how y'all could have more churches in different locations so people wouldn't drive as far.
Yeah.
What is that made up of? What's that hub made up of, I guess?
Yeah, so it's land that was given by the government at kind of one side of Dubai called Jebel Ali. It's the section of the city where it is. So there's a church, we call it a church compound. That's kind of what the government would call it, yeah. So the church owns that, and so they operate it, and so they issue visas. So like my visa, it's through the Evangelical Church, and so again, like I'm legally there as an employee of the Evangelical Church of Dubai, and so we now within the compound they operate 7 days a week, but so there's I think three primary like worship halls, and so different churches can kind of sign up for different times. So you may have a church on Sunday morning that meets at 9 a.m. and one that meets at 11 a.m. and one that meets. So you might have 20 different churches, or 25, I think, maybe meeting just on a weekend. Yeah. And so one of the difficulties with that is you're on the same place. Like our church, we meet in a hotel because we wanted to minister to people on that edge of town, but we get a government allowance to meet in the hotel. There's a few others that get that, but the government has to grant that. We had to apply for it.
So I'm going to drill down on that.
Yeah.
But I want you to keep going. But so
yeah, our church won't fit in the compound.
What's the allowance? Is that just covering the cost of the hotel?
Oh, sorry. No, just a certificate saying we're allowed to meet outside of the compound.
Okay, so you're still having to pay the hotel to use the facilities.
Yeah,
okay.
we rent from the hotel each week. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
So we actually wouldn't fit in the compound right now, our church, just in terms of size. But there's a good number of our members that don't own cars, and so it would be a really long metro ride down to the compound each week. So
a lot of places I've been, a car in certain places is not a necessity. Is it a necessity there, or can you just do everything within walking?
So
what you need?
It's not. I wouldn't say it's an absolute necessity. It's a convenience for those that can get it. Yeah. Because they have a metro line that goes to the center of the city, so a lot of people will try to live close to the metro line. There are many taxis, and taxis are affordable there. Okay. And so you can get Ubers, but there are taxis everywhere. So their public transportation is very good, and they're constantly the government's constantly trying to expand it, and so the infrastructure there is very good, and it's expanding. And so a car is not a necessity, but we have one, and we don't live by the metro line. And so we would be taking taxis, and so we do have one. We do have a car, so that is an advantage.
Is a car there? Is it affordable for most of the people?
And so I don't know the exact percentage of people in Dubai that own cars. Okay. But it would really depend upon kind of your job and how much, depend upon your salary and how much, if you can afford one. And then there's a lot of other factors, and you got to be able to procure a license and everything, a driver's license and stuff like that.
How's the traffic?
Depends upon the time of day and time of year. Yeah. But to me, I don't know that it's much different than rush hour in Dallas.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's about that. So, and you kind of learn better. Sometimes they are better to drive than others, and so, and times of year. When
Pick your spots.
Dubai, there's a lot of people that leave Dubai in the summers. It's hot, but it's also schools are out, so people who have an allowance, they'll go back and visit their home countries. Like when 90% are not from there, right? They go back and visit their home countries, and so the very beginning, like in late August, September, when everyone's back in town and school's starting again, traffic gets a little more congested.
Yeah.
But it kind of depends upon time of year and time of day, but it's certainly manageable. They're always trying to build new roads and kind of reconstruct highways and roads to make the traffic flow more efficient, which I appreciate.
It's a booming city, is that not right?
It is.
Everything that I read and try to read just preparing for this is just I just see growth. It just everywhere springing up new buildings, commercial buildings.
Yeah, commercial space. I mean, it's very. They've gone out of their way to make it very business friendly. So it's a very business friendly place. They have. I mean, their airport's very good, very efficient, and so and apartments and homes, everything are coming up all the time too. So yeah, it is a relatively easy place to move to.
And I understand it's very safe and very clean.
Yes.
Is that not right?
Yeah. So
not much crime.
No, very little crime, and so they have quite a few cameras and stuff up, and so it's. But I think too, it doesn't mean there would never be anything, but there are most of those came there to support their families. Yeah. And so petty crime just wouldn't make much sense. Yeah. It's not for the vast majority. It's just not worth the risk, and so it would cost you dearly to do that.
The law's the law there.
Yeah, and so you could go to jail or you get deported, and I mean it's your family's counting on you, and so it's just not worth the risk. So yeah, it is actually a very, very safe place. Yeah, very safe place to be.
How is how do you see the church growing there in Dubai? Do you have a strategy for church growth? Is it to plant more churches in different areas?
Yeah, that's a really great question. We're kind of in a process now trying to figure out how we can do that because we don't know. I mean, new churches can start in the compound, but we have planted 12 churches since Redeemer's founding. So we're not a church that's trying to get as big as we can. I mean, we in the past we planted a church and send people out, and then within 6 months we're back to the same size. Yeah, but
that's a good thing.
And part of it is just the constant turnover. I mentioned earlier we kind of went home for 2 years, and we came back. Our membership at almost 600 people was 50% different. Yeah, in 2 years, and so that is a goal though. We do want to plant churches, and some of those churches will be planted in other countries. We'll be sending people out. A lot of people eventually, So we another thing that we set up about 10 years ago was the first accredited seminary on the Arabian Peninsula. Awesome. And so we have professors with PhDs who've come. We have some from prominent seminaries in the U.S. that will come and teach intensive classes there for us. But we train people, that men and women that want to do ministry in the local church. We train aspiring church planters, and so we have a church planter track for a master's degree. And so some of them, the thing is in Dubai, you can't really stay forever because you don't get permanent residency. It's based on your residence visa and your contract. And so, but for almost all of us, we know at some point we'll go back to our home countries. And so a lot of the training comes with some of them knowing that, and some of them desiring to go back to their home countries and plant a church. Or be involved in ministry there, and so there's a ripple effect that happens that spreads out and that occurs because of what the training that so many of these members are getting there at Redeemer. And so we do want to plant churches as much as possible as we can in the city, and so we want to try to abide by government regulations and policies and allowing us to do as much as we can, and then others are wanting to go out and plant. And so typically we plant international churches. If in the past, if they've been in Dubai, they were international churches, other nationalities. Sometimes they're language specific ones. So one of the churches that we planted in 2018, so about a third of our members are from the Philippines. Yeah. And so we planted a Tagalog-speaking church. So we don't want to plant an ethnic church because we believe that in the new heavens and new earth will have people from all nations. And so we don't want to do that. But sometimes there are some that struggle with English. And so Tagalog-speaking church, it will be almost entirely Filipino. But we're doing it in a specific language. And so that is another thing that we have done. And so that has been that the pastor we sent out from our church who is leading that. It's been beautiful to see the growth. And many of their members also attend our seminary.
Yeah.
Who are getting training as well.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful when you can train up the local people in that sense, and that way they can go and reach the people instead of, the white man's here or whatever.
Yeah. For sure.
Reach to them. So what have I missed here? I'm just, we've just met, so what are some things that you might want to say to the people that I'm just not aware of enough of the culture or the ministry aspect of what goes on there? Is there anything that you would like to add to this?
That's a good question. I'm trying to, the things, probably could sense there's some things I get excited about that you asked about that we're talking about there, but I think one of the things I come back to a lot that I've learned is, I was a high school teacher before, and I realized that I could teach, I could explain, but when I started teaching the Bible and preaching, there's a fundamental difference between preaching the scriptures and teaching some other bit of content. And what I mean by that is I had to start reflecting it on the preaching task and realizing I never tried to change someone's heart by teaching them history. I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Well, content critical thinking, yes, I wanted them to enjoy this and learn from that, but then I started realizing the task of preaching is presenting Christ from all of the scriptures and trusting the Holy Spirit to use that to change people. I can't do that.
Yeah.
It requires prayer, requires something supernatural for God to do that, but that is his ordained means to save people. And that is a beautiful thing to see and to be a part of and realize that I'm simply a vessel of God's mercy. What a privilege to do that. And so I don't take that for granted that I get to do that in the Middle East. Unreached peoples who are coming who've never heard the gospel, or other peoples that think they believe and are hearing for the first time. And so we believe, and I think with that theologically, I believe in the full sufficiency of the scriptures. They are fully sufficient for all of life and ministry. Everything we need to know about who God is, what he has done, what he has given us in Christ, and everything's here. And so we believe it's sufficient. We don't do anything else but preach this. I'm not going to go simply tell stories.
We don't need a self-help message.
God doesn't need my help. We just we obey and we faithfully proclaim this with joy. And those who behold the glory of Christ in here are changed from one degree of glory to another. And so, that's another thing I'd like to say too, is just simply, wherever someone else is doing ministry, or even if you're just reading scripture with someone, as Isaiah says, it never comes back empty. God accomplishes exactly what he intends to do with that. And it really has been a great privilege for us to be engaged in that, involved in that, and seeing the Lord do that. Even when you're wondering, is this even working? Because you can't see fruit in that moment. You see down the road, he's doing, as John Piper has said, been so helpful, God may be doing 10,000 things in your life right now, and you may be aware of 3 of them.
Yeah, love it. So much truth to that. Well, if people wanted to reach out to you, is there a way that they can reach out to you? Do you have a website, or that they can leave them with that?
Yeah, so RedeemerDubai.com is our church's website. So like I said, we legally exist. My face is on there, but my email is on there. And so I'm not really on social media much. But my email is there if you'd be interested in contacting me. That's probably the most direct way.
Okay. Man, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate
really has.
it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on.
All right. Well, that's a wrap, folks. God bless. We'll see you next time.